and excuse.
Now the last section here is going to go to you, Deputy Donnelly. You have about 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, I spoke yesterday about some of the positives in this budget, because there are positives in the budget, including closing down Section 10 tax avoidance by vulture funds, including a focus on special needs education, including a welcome first step in terms of moving to an affordable, high-quality childcare system. But the complete lack of ambition in this budget means that for the limited good it has done, for most people, nothing has changed. And for some people, things have actually got quite a bit worse. Now, there's been much talk about this extra €5 a week. But actually, when you factor in inflation, in terms of what you can actually buy with your money next year, the €5 falls to about €2, €2.50. So about €100 a year. There is funding for new teachers, but when you factor in increased number of students, class sizes don't fall. And that's in spite of us having the 5th largest class sizes in the OECD. There is no new funding for schools, which means in real terms, capitation grants to our schools are falling next year. There is funding for higher education, but actually when you factor in rising student numbers and inflation, yet again next year, per student funding to higher education in this country is going down. Now, Minister, the government in the literature provided to us yesterday gave an example of somebody on minimum wage. And the example shows that between the change to USC and the 10 cents change to the minimum wage, that this person will be better off in cash terms by 1.2% next year. What the government example doesn't do is the next bit of the calculation, which says inflation is going to be 1.4% next year. And so, according to the government's own figures, people on minimum wage are going to be poorer next year than they are this year. Now, in a wealthy economy with lots of job creation and a growing GDP, that's just not okay. It's just not okay that that's what this budget would result in. The Irish Fiscal Advisory Council have reported that the entire projected increase in current expenditure for the next 5 years is needed just to stand still, when you factor in Lansdowne Road and demographics and inflation. The entire projected increase for the next 5 years of current expenditure is needed to do nothing. Now, we need to have a serious think about that, because that says we're not going to get any improvements. Now, Minister, the negative equity generation have lost out yet again. Not only was nothing done for them again, this is my 6th budget in Dail, and this is the 6th budget I've spoken on where nothing was done for the negative equity generation. But this year it went further, because actually it's harming the negative equity generation, because it's saying to first-time buyers, here's €20,000 for you. It's of no use to you, because house prices will go up by €20,000. So it's of no use to you as a first-time buyer, but negative equity generation, who are way behind in terms of the challenge, way behind first-time buyers, you're now 20 grand worse off because of this budget. Now, one measure that would help, that I have proposed for several years, is to make accidental landlords tax exempt on their rental income. They are being double taxed to the tune of thousands and thousands a year. It means they can't get out of negative equity, they can't save to buy a new home. It's very simple to bring in, and it should be brought in. Our scientists and our researchers have lost out yet again. Now, funding to basic scientific research was cut during the recession, and maybe that's okay, maybe that had to happen. But if we don't start to reinvest now, we're going to lose the ability to compete internationally in terms of world-class research and innovation. If we don't start to reinvest, we're going to start running out of ideas to commercialise. And yet there isn't a cent in the budget for Science Foundation Ireland or the Irish Research Council. Our local businesses have lost out quite badly. Now, the Taoiseach spoke of a Brexit-proofed budget. But the only thing I can find in the budget is €3 million. Now, the ministers have addressed both the challenges and the opportunities posed by Brexit. A hard Brexit is looming. Sterling yesterday reached its lowest level against the euro since the Brexit vote. IBEC said the following, quote, "This budget doesn't look much different from what it would have been had Brexit not happened. They clearly have not done enough to help those companies that are most exposed." €2 in every €5 traded by our SMEs is traded with the UK. And that's at risk, which means our companies are at risk, which means the jobs are at risk and the exchequer revenues are at risk. So I would ask you, Minister, what are we doing pouring yet another €500 million into one of the most expensive healthcare systems on earth and just €3 million into helping prepare our businesses for the very real and serious threat that is Brexit? To put it into context, Minister, the €3 million allocated for what is coming as a big external shock totals 1/5 of 1% of the total budget space that was allocated yesterday. The arts have lost out yet again. We are so proud in this country of the achievements and creativity of our arts community, from literature to cinema to music to dance and on and on and on. And yet economically we treat that community with contempt, with absolute contempt. Ireland's funding to the arts is 1/6 of the European average. 1/6. I had to check it myself when I heard that because I didn't think that could possibly be true. 1/6 of the average. We should be as ashamed of that as we are proud of our arts community. And yet we couldn't in this budget even protect the funding that was allocated this year and keep that €40 million fully allocated to the community. It's time, Minister, that the creativity of Ireland's artists is matched with cold, hard cash from Ireland's government. Now, I'll finish on this. It's easy for me to stand up and call for investment in the arts and help for the negative equity generation and investment in education and more money for Brexit. That's easy. And the reasonable question back is, how do you propose to fund it? So here's the answer. Minister Noonan has said he is going to shut down tax avoidance for vulture funds. There is €50 million allocated in terms of extra revenues next year for doing that. If we do it right, the revenue we will get is not 50 million, it's north of 500 million. So the answer to the question of how do you propose to pay for all of these worthy things is get the tax avoidance for vulture funds shut down and use that money wisely. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy, and I would like to thank